Well, it is a windy day. This is Monday. I'm not really going to work. I'm going to get some more gravel. My next, or hopefully last load of it's 2 to 4 riprap is what they call it. 2 inch to 4 inch. And you can see in the flower bed there, which are kind of metal flowers because the real ones die. Pain in the ass. Gets really hot by the wall. Oh, we're putting in that gravel down there, which wasn't there before. And now it is. All right. Sun is shining and it's cold out. So, what I wanted to try to do was put together kind of like a summary or a wrap up of all the questions I've been asking in the last 3 or 4 podcasts, like what can we do about it? And, Q had a plan. Obviously, that didn't happen, and I'm not done fucking talking about Q because I listened to some shows this weekend about Q, and, they're still talking as if they were right, and things are just changed a little bit and on hold. There's still a plan. It's been modified. A few of the people, they talk as if they're direct contact with Q, whoever or whatever that is. And, well, I have it on authority, as usual. And now Trump is talking about maybe even creating a social media website. So, I don't think he's given up. But, and I guess I can say Q, bless their little hearts, and on and them for trying to keep us all from jumping off a cliff. It's not working, and that's because the deep state, they have a plan also, and they're way more in charge than a bunch of us people that, listen to Q and think that we are part of the solution, which we're not. Because the deep state's in charge and we are not them. And the deep state's had, 100 years, maybe more, depending on who they are. Fabian Society's been trying to stick it to America since our founding because they just don't like it. Whatever we are, whatever the it is, they don't like it. Freedom and liberty, that is, because Satan's plan, if you look at it, was more control. It's more of a control freak kind of thing, and that's who I think the deep state are. They're so deep, they're in hell. But I still think there's hope for America because until Christ shows up, we can still kind of control our destiny, perhaps. And even with Sodom and Gomorrah, and I've talked about this, God was just looking for 1 or 2 righteous people, and he would have spared the town, the city, the village, whatever they called it back then. And so they could have done something even then if they would have been righteous. His plan wasn't in motion so much that, God couldn't have spared it. And I think the same is with America. And righteous is maybe a word that's been thrown around so much that we think if you're not a prophet or an alleged prophet, then you're not, you're not righteous. Or if you're not saved in Christ's name, you're not righteous. Or if you're not, a priest in a church, then you're not righteous. Or if you don't pay your tithing, then you're not righteous. And seems to be that's what we think of righteous. And I think even in Sodom and Gomorrah, when, God was looking for a righteous person, he wasn't looking for the leader of a group or a church. He was just looking for Bob or Jane that were righteous. like the widow's mite, or like when he saved Mary from being stoned because she was a harlot. He was like, well, if he was without sin, cast the first stone. And he saved her, a harlot, and that's they thought Jesus was that was heresy, it was blasphemy. You know, Little did they know they were talking about the guy that would later on write the Bible, in theory. Okay, um, so there may be righteous people among us as far as what God is looking for. And I think because America is the greatest nation ever created, and there were great ones before, even Rome was a republic, and they ran it with a lot of freedom and liberty, and that's what God wants, free agency. He wants us to be able to do stupid things and grapple with those stupid things, and then rise above it. And then if we are righteous or care enough when we die that, then Christ will atone for us. And I don't remember Christ ever saying, well, I'll atone for you if you've been baptized, or you in this church or that church. I think he was looking for more of a true righteous person, or someone that believes down deep, not deep in the water, I mean deep, so who knows? We don't know. We think we know, but we don't. So I think there's hope for America, and it's going to be difficult. And they're doing a thing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A lot of my listeners might also be Mike Adams listeners from Health Ranger Report on Bright Dion and situation updates and stuff, or even Patriot Street Fighter, I think, will be there. Doug Billings maybe be there. I know Cindy Powell will be there. Michael Flynn will be there. So they're calling it the biggest group of patriots assembled, probably in one place. That might be true. And then they say we're all true constitutional believers, and that's fine too. I think if they wanted to get someone in there like Chris Ann Hall, would bring a lot to the conversation when it comes to the Constitution, whatever. So that's going to be going on in Tulsa, I think, next month. But they're talking about fighting to save free speech. And among other things, I'm sure they'll be talking about, that, free speech also. But I have a friend that uses like really pretty, I mean, you think I cuss a lot, and I just cuss a lot. And then I talk about things that I believe are important, but I've never been banned. I think the only time I ever got thrown in Facebook jail was, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was using an app that just would take a post and share it to many groups at one time, because it was hard to share to, all your groups, and so this little plug-in thing or whatever it was would share to all of your groups. But I didn't notice that in the coding it would load up a lot of I guess junk, like click not clickbait, but clickbait looking stuff, all the links that were in the post or something. And so I did that, and they warned me, and I looked into it, and I go, I don't see it, because I couldn't really see what it was talking about. And then they banned me for 7 days. I just couldn't post, from, things like that. I could still comment on people's stupid shit and stuff. So, I've never been banned, but he gets banned. He's always in and out of Facebook jail, as he calls it. So much so that he's, just irritated with it, and he thinks it's all fucking bullshit. It is. But, I could see it, when he's using the N-word and saying stupid this and, really harsh, then it doesn't promote, I guess, some kind of open dialogue and communications. It's harsh and shuts it down. And usually I talk to people like that on Facebook. I'll go, hey, dial it back, buddy. You're truly painting with a broad brush when you say all people like this are this. And no, that's it's not what I learned in debate, classes and stuff. So yeah, I get it, and he's got a point. He has been banned, but did he ban himself? I don't know. You can't yell fire in a building, in a theater, like they say, legally even, unless there is a fire. So that's kind of what he does. Love to death. He's really smart. He just has this one quirk that's kind of harsh. So I don't see the point in having a big gathering to save free speech and take America back, because it's not going to happen. And so I've looked at it more so on a local level, and I've talked about this before, that we only have a chance to save America if we aim small and hit small, or whatever that expression is. You got to aim small. If you're aiming for America and the political system as a whole in Washington D.C., then that's I don't know what kind of gun you would be aiming with that big of a target. Shotgun, I guess, figuratively speaking, a bazooka, an atomic bomb. I don't know how can you hit something that nebulous and large. So you got to aim small. So, like, I think what we need to do is dial it back. We need to start talking to our mayors and our city council. And I talked a little bit about that, and that's part of the master plan. If you have an alderman or whatever, you need to get people together that think alike, like you, on Facebook before you get banned, that are in your community, and go, hey, let's do this. Let's go to these meetings and see if we can do that. Let's try it and see if we can get, a grip on this. Planning and zoning is a great place to start, because most of the things the city does, I have no problem with. I like parks. I pay my taxes for the park, and my wife plays softball at the park, and I go to the park and watch the games, and it's there for all of us. It's not means tested. It's the park. The swimming pool, do I agree with this, public pool that costs that much money? Not really. A park, I kind of get more along that, because it brings more community together than just a swimming pool. They own a golf course, which, once again, they've already bought it and spent the money, so whatever. But I don't agree with them running the restaurant and the bar as a city, owning it, because what ends up happening is their bottom line is different than a real restaurant or bar owner's bottom line. They charge the same for food, but if they don't make a profit, they don't really care. If they're losing money, they don't care, because it just comes out of this fungible giant pot called taxes. And so you as a business owner couldn't do that. If you're not making money and you're not finding your break-even point and you're not running a really sharp pencil, you're closed. You can't just draw from your rich Uncle Sam and go, oh, another month. And then not even, like, even your rich uncle would sit there and go, well, what's this going to do for you next month? Well, I'm just going to continue to do the same dopey ass thing and hope I get different results. He's going to go, well, then I'm not going to lend you the money. But see, the taxpayers can't say that. We can't audit that and go, hey, okay, you got 3 months to turn this around and start making a profit, or we're closing it. The city council would be like, what do you mean you're closing it? We are the city council. So, but for the most part, I can even stomach that, because eventually, businesses are going to rise up, which I'm surprised they didn't during the COVID thing, when they were, hemorrhaging cash. These businesses, why they didn't go, well, your damn golf course is subsidized with tax dollars. We want subsidized too, or shut that damn thing down, because it's competing with us, and it's not cool. So when you look at your city government, at least me in a smaller town, the park I use, garbage, water I use, street services, sidewalks I use. The things the city does, for the most part, I use one way or another. It benefits me one way or another. Planning and zoning does dick. It's this nebulous thing of public health and safety, which they can stamp onto anything. But that doesn't give the city a legal right to use their police powers unless it is truly public health and safety. So that would be a good starting point, sit there and talk to the city and go, well, we need to change this. These codes are oppressive. They're damn near tyrannical. It's hurting, older people that can't afford to replace their water heater or put a roof on their house because they got to get a damn permit and it's got to be inspected, which means there has to be approval and plans and you got to get a licensed contractor. Well, their grandson might have been able to kick out a couple rolls of roofing paper and fix the roof so it's not leaking and therefore it is more safe. They can't do that. See, now it's instead of, having their kids or grandkids come down for the weekend and, eat some of grandma's special cake or grandpa's, fun fishing trip, and a couple, 5 rolls of roofing paper and some nails and a couple $100, it's done. No, now it's a $5,000 roof. Well, they can't afford it. And so they just don't get it done. See, that to me is wrong. It's wrong-headed. It's wrong thinking. So you go to the city and go, we need to change this. And they'll give you all the, the pushback, International Building Code and blah, 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 and public health. But you need to be prepared to push back harder. Push them back so hard they might fall over. It doesn't matter. Push them back, and when they dust off and get back up off their butt, go, we're being polite here, but you have overreached, and this is a usurpation of authority and power we did not grant you. Well, the state did. It's like, I don't think so. In fact, I could probably find just as many laws to say you're wrong as you can find to say you're right. So, whatever. But you have to start. Because, see, planning and zoning is really rolling out Agenda 21. At least in my area, when I really look at it, everything seems up and quite, squishy. But the reality is what they're doing is, if you study the rules and how Agenda 21 works and what it does as far as private property, my guy from planning and zoning that I have a beef with and he doesn't like me either is really pushing Agenda 21. Now, does he know that? I don't think so. I think he's just an arrogant blowhard that thinks he's doing the right thing because he's been given this little, chrome-plated badge that says that he's the authority for planning and zoning and he can, tell people to stop doing things on their private property. And he really feels he might be doing the right thing. But, as I've talked it over with the city attorney, I go, this is a dereliction of duty. Things are not being fixed in this community. Meanwhile, they're off over here in La La Land, being oppressive and overreaching. And so, I've talked to other people on the city council. I go, you might not notice this, but if you would take some time to read Agenda 21, you would see that's exactly what this is. So start there. Right now, we have teachers that refuse to work. Well, most of them are in teachers' unions, in a lot of them. So if their contracts are up or they're in violation of their contract and stuff, then we can hire new teachers. In fact, right now would be a perfect time while schools are closed and stuff to back off far enough to sit there and go, we're not re-engaging with the Department of Education or even the state education. We're taking it back. We're literally taking the education of our children back locally. And they can, and the state can push and all that, but right now they got way too many irons in the fire to be fucking with this. And right now our teachers are all like, well, I don't want to work anyway, so that's fine. We'll we'll catch them on the rebound. No, you won't, maybe. So there are areas that you can fight, and I'm sure everybody listening has their pet peeve with the city. Most of it's planning and zoning. A lot of it is the schools. A lot of it might be parks or sidewalks or how the money's spent. But you get together a group, and like when I was in college, I was the vice president of Phi Beta Lambda, which is whatever that meant. He just asked me to join. I said, "Sounds cool." Um, and what we did is we had to put on so many things in a year, or in that semester, and so we got together, we brainstormed, and came up with 3 really good ideas that we would sponsor. A thing on financial investments and Roth IRAs and all that, and another one was I can't even remember. That was way back in the early ass 80s. But we brainstormed a bunch of ideas. Me and the group would put together, and then I said, okay, well, let's pick 3. And we picked the 3 that we thought were most important. And then it was pretty obvious who should run those groups because they were the ones that brought up the idea. So I was like, well, okay, do you want to be in charge of this, financial planning thing? And she said, oh, yeah. My father's in it. I'm studying it. And that's why I'm in college. It's like, okay, cool. You're in charge of that. And then the other 2 things that were equally as important, for the community, because these had to be community outreach things that we were doing at the college. So everyone became the head of their little chairmanship, of that committee. And I said, okay, as acting president of the group, because our president was sick, I was like, anything you need, let me know. I'm here for all 3 of you. You bounce it off me. You need money for printing or whatever. We've got the money to do all this. You just call me, and if it's over our budget, we'll talk to the teacher or whoever's in charge of the group. And I said, well, that's what we'll do. And it went on without a hitch. Everything was perfect. Everyone was like, that was the easiest, greatest thing you ever did. I was like, I didn't do shit. I tell you the truth. I just sat back and herded the group, and the people that were most involved with their thing, they had it, mentioned it, they proposed it, they had their plan, we agreed on it, and then they were in charge. That was pretty simple, person most committed usually wins, and that was them. So we could do that, you get together with the people in your town, it requires you being nice and maybe meeting people, and you could do it at the bar or the restaurant, just have a little group meeting. I'm not talking about joining the fucking Chamber of Commerce or, National Small Business Alliance, because that's all big ticket stuff. I'm just talking about you and Bob and Jane and Frank and the feed store guy and the boot store guy or whatever you got in your community, the archery shop, the gun store, just, the local yokels, the health food co-op, get them all together and go, what can we do? Come up with some great ideas, group think it to death, and then go, okay, well, now let's pick chairmen for this, and you will spearhead that. And the person that has the idea will usually be the one that's like, yeah, I want to do that. Get them together. And then you say, okay, the rest of us that are not with these 2 groups or whatever we're fighting, the big fight, this quarter, doesn't even have to be like for the rest of their life. It's just like, we're going to, as soon as we win or we get some progress, we will reevaluate and then come up with maybe something else, a side gig that we can push from the other side with, some of these other things we talked about. And they'll go, okay. And then you go, the rest of us are going to work like hell to do whatever you need. I can do printing. I can make T-shirts. I got another friend that makes T-shirts for all the high school, sports things and stuff. And so we got that. We got media. I know people in media. I do a podcast. I got another friend that, used to do a small newspaper. I think we could kick him back into high gear, maybe. We got a radio station in our town, which is really a big deal. and he's on our side because they're being a dick to him, just like governments that dick to everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you own a TV station, a radio station, a newspaper, or a blog. They're being dicks to you. So and it's like we're going to coordinate these things. So all you got to do is put together your game plan of how you want to attack this thing. Get some people together, petitions or whatever, sign them and stuff, and then we will use what we have in our arsenal to then push that way. So you're not going to have to sit there as chairman and talk to the radio station and all that and get them on board. We will get them on board, and then when you need them, we can fine tune it, dial it up and in, and tighten it up, and then push. And that's the pushback. And then you can kind of, might take 6 months, might take a year. I talked to a guy the other day, in the county about this planning and zoning thing I'm fighting with, and he goes, "You do know that the city has no code because of the way it was done the last time." I go, "Yeah, I know." And he goes, "I'm talking to council and some people on the council, and they're talking to the mayor about writing new code, planning and zoning code," which is awesome, because that's my big pet peeve. So, and I said, but they're dragging their feet. They know it needs to be done because they legally have no code. So therefore, like even with my case, if push really comes to shove, they can't even enforce what doesn't exist. But so he's like, well, you can get together, some lawyers, and you can actually write that and present it to the city because they hate working, and go, here's what we think is a workable new code. Have it done, all the I's are crossed. So it's kind of like a publicly written initiative that becomes a ballot thing that the city council will vote on. And if you do it right, and there's people that can do that will write it and get it together, and then you have the meetings and the workshops that are open to the public, and you hammer out all the details, and then you pass something that's worthwhile. I was like, holy fuck, I did not know that. I mean, I've heard that, we the people can do this stuff, but it's kind of like, I can build a house. I've never done it, so where do I start? And then you have to, go, oh, you're going to need something to set that house on. Oh, that's called a foundation or a footing or a stem wall. Okay, learn about that. And then you get that built, and then you go, what's next? Oh, I need a floor, a subfloor. There's specs. There's engineering goes in there. How does it have to be built? I don't need to hire an engineer. I just need to read all the same stuff they do, because it's not like I'm building bridges for Empire State Building or something. It's just like a fucking house. It's really, all the charts are out there. You just look at it. Span, 2x6, 2x8, 2x10. How big? How far? So you can do it. We can do this. So there's people out there that will write these things, probably right within your local community, So that's just, a few little things. But if we don't start small and we don't get control of our towns and our cities, then, or even our little area within the big city, like, New York's huge, but you got representation called aldermans there. And if you can sway them to start seeing things your way, and if you've got a people behind you, he can sway other ones to where eventually you get something going. Now, in a bigger town like Phoenix or California, LA or San Bernardino or wherever the fuck, Austin, Texas, it's going to take a long time because they've been working at it from the other angle for a long time. So, Austin, Texas is Texas, but it's like San Francisco in the desert, basically. So it took them 20, 30 years to get all their people in place that all think like stupid fucking libtards that they are. They go, oh, we need control, because you just can't let people run themselves. They will get hurt, So some things are going to take more effort. But how much more effort is it going to take to maybe get control of, your big town like we got Sierra Vista here? It's like 50, 60,000 people. That's probably a 1-year project. But if you don't start, you're never going to get your game plan together. And the people that are working in the smaller towns, can help because they're like, well, I got this radio guy. He, you know, we can work on it that way. And then you start flanking them and coming in and stuff. Well, if that seems impossible, then how are you going to change Washington, D.C., which is thousands of miles away from maybe where you live and full of the deep state corruption on a level you don't even understand? I mean, Trump barely survived, that. They impeached him twice. And Trump was the president of the United States. He had more legal team facilities for him as the president and Secret Service and bodyguards to where they couldn't just take him out if he started winning. But it still cost him personally millions of dollars in legal fees. He's the only guy that left being a public servant at that level more broke than when he went in. Because like Obama, he was worth maybe $1 million or something, and from all his scams and deals that he did and books that he didn't write. And he left worth, $30-40 million, and now he's worth even more. Trump went in with billions, and he left with like billions missing. So you're not going to take on Washington, D.C. Your little group in Tulsa is not going to win free speech at a federal level. It's too big of a target. You just can't do it. So we need to rethink, and we need to aim small, and we just need more marksmen aiming small. And like, these towns I drive through on the way to work, they're like Huachuca City. I mean, the mayor was an asshat for years, and he had junkyards and stuff, everything against all the code that he had wrote, but he could do it. Well, that's so easy, then, I think the mayor in my town of 5,000-6,000 people, he won the election with 500 votes, not 500 more than the other guy, which there was no other guy, just 500 votes. That's it. 10% of people in town voted. This town here I'm in right now, where the mayor was kind of an asshat, I mean, he let things go so much that people were free to actually turn the town into something really worth looking at, but he was no help whatsoever. I'm sure he became mayor on 100 votes, total 100 votes. I mean, most of us could buy 100 votes. I mean, when you think about it. So you're not running for mayor of L.A. You're not trying to take Gavin Newsom's place, which costs millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of votes and petitions and all that, which is funny because they're trying to recall Gavin Newsom's. And so they needed 100,000 signatures. They got 200,000, but they wanted to verify every one of those. Now, they didn't want to verify the votes for the presidential election. But boy, when it hit him in the pocket and they're talking about raining on his fucking parade, yeah, he wanted every vote or signature on that petition verified. Blind studies or whatever. So you can see the hypocrisy, but you're not running for that. You're starting small. Even in a big town, you might be able to get enough people if you got friends and you're really talking some good stuff and you're not calling people names like my friend that gets kicked off Facebook all the time. You might be able to get enough people in your area and some of the old founding families in that little area, which is now just like an alderman seat, but you represent that smaller area. You might be able to, get your foot in the door, or you might find somebody that's, closer to getting his foot in the door that you can pull over to your side, your way of thinking. So this is my plan, and you need, like, we have a good sheriff. And a lot of our city council now have become, more conservative based in their thinking. Like I said, I'm not talking Republican or Democrat because either group can help. You just need to get them to listen. And people that won't listen, well, you don't need to talk to them anyway. I mean, I don't need to talk to people that are too dumb to understand that, the sky is blue. I mean, if they really think it's green, good on them. I'm not going to waste my time with them. So, you know, you can get your people together, and it's not that hard to do. So you got the sheriff and, some police and city council. Our mayor, I hear, is pretty good shape. And then you start changing things. And if you got someone in your group that wants to change, you know, land use laws, like, we in Arizona and most states on this side of the Mississippi have, BLM, that manages the land, or should I say stole all our land from the states. You know, you can get your sheriff to go, hey, we're going to do like Myler County there in Oregon, but we want to do it here. And we want to pick an area where, we've got your support to where when the FBI show up, you're going to push them away, right? And he'll go, yeah, they can't call me into service and I can stop them from arresting you because this is my county. I have jurisdiction even over BLM if I want to assert that authority. And there was a sheriff in California that told all the park rangers, hey, surrender your guns and your badges and your ticket books. I'm rescinding my authority to operate in my county. And they're like, we're federal agents. You can't do that. And he's like, well, yeah, I can, because just because you people haven't read the Constitution doesn't mean I haven't. So you can branch out in areas. I would just be happy if we could, mainly get control of our city councils and start whittling away at the years of incrementalism that they've been doing to us. If there's free speech issues in your city, whittle away at it. If you have issues with, property rights or raising chickens or wanting to go off grid in your small town, and they're like, you can't raise chickens. It's like, okay, that's a sheriff issue. You need to know that even though they're bringing to bear things that they don't have as far as authority, you need to know that. It's like, yeah, planning and zoning can sit there and go, well, it's against city ordinances to raise chickens, or have a garden in your front yard. And it might sound all legal and really cool, big words and stuff that's in their ordinance. And, like my city ordinances are always saying, the state of Arizona grants authority to the city to make laws, to protect the people. Well, yeah, it does grant them authority to do that, as long as those ordinances and those laws follow the state constitution. Well, you'll find out a lot of these chicken and farming ordinances really aren't backed up fully by the state constitution. And there's a loophole in everything. I mean, fuck, if it don't fit, you must acquit. That's like the biggest fucking loophole in the world, and yet got OJ away, free from murder. So you just need to find lawyers that are willing to say, I'm not into raising chickens, and I really don't care about front yard gardens, but I do care about the Constitution and freedom and liberty. And I am willing to take the weight of my organization and fight for you, because what they're doing is bullshit. Whether it's bullshit with free speech, bullshit with gun rights, bullshit with private property, it's bullshit, and we're going to fight for it. And that's what the ACLU used to do. They would fight these little innocuous things like schools telling you couldn't wear this kind of shirt, whatever, and they would fight it, and they'd go, no, schools can't mandate what people wear to school because it's free speech. See, it's free speech. I thought it was different. It's like, no, you're wrong. Fuck you, you lose. So schools had to make it policy, and only private schools can make it a policy to where you wear a uniform. Public schools can't do that because it's public. Can't tell you what to fucking do. So we used to have ACLU was a group that would fight for things. Now they've just become asshats like the Southern Poverty Law Center. Just like, well, the real horrible things is, what they're doing to black people. It's like, no, that's not the real horrible thing. The real horrible thing is what they're doing to Americans, black, brown, yellow, white, whatever. But see, they've gone off and created their own agenda. So, oh well, what are you going to do? You're not going to talk to them about it. But there's probably lawyers in your area. You get a group of lawyers together and say, well, we're gonna pitch in some of our massive amount of money we make being lawyers, and we're gonna fight these things pro bono. We're gonna help this group because my grandmother was screwed over by planning and zoning, and she couldn't fix her roof, and so it leaked, and nobody knew because she couldn't get it fixed. Come on, it's my grandma. We're not that close of a family. But then there was mold in her attic, and she fucking died from, some infection. And she couldn't do it because the goddamn city wouldn't let her. They wouldn't even help her. So there are people out there that care. And so you need to find them. You need to go on a scavenger hunt and find lawyers and councilmen and people that are proactive and organizations and groups like the Lions and the Elks and the VFW and these groups and go, well, we can help you. We got a lot of old retired veterans here that just are not done pissing people off yet. And that comes from the movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. where he's an old Navy diver where they wore that big bell on their head, helmet. And I think it was Robert Duvall, I think. He's retired now, and he's helping Cuba Gooding Jr. with this case with the Navy. And he's like, why are you helping me? And Robert Duvall goes, I think that was who it was. It could have been some other guy, but I'm pretty sure. He goes, well, I'm not done pissing people off yet. And so you got to find them people and these old retired guys that are now so cantankerous and mean that they would love to go out there to VFW in your area and along with the other groups and put together a little rally where feed them, make them some hamburgers, and they're fucking happy, and to raise awareness about how Grandma Jones died because of mold because she couldn't afford to get her roof fixed. The city was complacent in the fact that they wouldn't help her and they wouldn't ease up restrictions so she could have her grandson put the roof on without a permit. That was $300. And so whatever it is, find something, find the heartstring tugging thing, that can really work. Some old lady that's, survived the Depression and believes in having a victory garden, and she wants to have a victory garden in her front yard, but they keep telling her no, but her backyard won't work because her dogs tear it all up. She wants her front yard, which a front yard garden can look just as beautiful as a bunch of stupid ass fucking landscaping. And so they won't let her do that. And that's the way she was raised, to be self-reliant, raise some awareness. Boy, the city will back away from that so fucking quick when you get old veterans and the old founders of the town and VFW and the Lions and all these groups that are just like, what are you doing? And they show up at a city council meeting. In a city council meeting, you will watch them pedal backwards so fucking fast that they will fall off their podium. Whoa, 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 whoa. We didn't know that this was going on. We're going to look into it. It's like, yeah, you look into it and we'll be back next meeting to see what you figured out. Because she's going to continue to grow her food. And we have thousands of dollars in lawyers that we can bring to bear on this situation. So you tell your planning and zoning guy to put this on hiatus for a while until you figure it out. So get back up on the podium and do your job and quit dicking with us. It would be funny to watch how fast they will recoil from some of the stupid shit they do when it's brought to their attention in a way that they're like, hey, my grandfather was the coolest dude ever and he lived through the Depression and he always talked about his victory garden. So you have to find ways to hit home. And it's a simple plan. It is really a simple plan. We need to aim small. if you're in an association, you need to attack that thing. I mean, you signed up for that. So if you don't really like living in an association, well, then you're going to have to sell your house because you signed away your constitutional rights. But there's still ways to maybe, fight a little bit. Get on the council, or whatever they call that fucking group that runs their, fucking criminal war camps or whatever, like Auschwitz. It's what homeowners associations are like internment camps for the Jews, as far as I'm concerned. Just control freak motherfuckers with nothing better to do but tell you how to live. I can see getting a group together to pave the streets and do a nice neighborhood and put a gate up there and keep the maintenance on that. But those association fees, they could be dialed back a little bit, and their communist rule could be dialed back a little bit. So there's ways to fight that. But when I say aim small, I'm talking about your city. And if it's a big city, then you need to really find a target of opportunity that you can hit and make some change. Become an alderman, get some newspapers on your side, get some bloggers on your side, get some podcasters and YouTubers on your side that live there. See, that's the thing with the big city. You got a lot of talent there. And you think, well, what's some video producer on YouTube going to do? Well, let's see. Every time he gets all public, like, I don't know, like the Patriot Street Fighter or Mike Adams, they'll put a video out, and by afternoon, if they release it in the morning, by the afternoon, they have close to 100,000 views. If you look at statistics, like when, and ratings, like, these late night talk shows and, the funny ones and stuff, they're getting a couple 100,000 views, but the ratings are on an overall, like, how good did he do this month? Well, if you're getting 100,000 views every night for every show, then advertisers are paying money to have their products on there, so he keeps his job. 100,000 views is nothing to laugh at. So if you got somebody in your community that's just ripping and rolling on these things, you're going to make change. Now, you got to remember those views are maybe worldwide views, and a lot of them people aren't going to really move the needle in your little community. But that doesn't mean you can't sit there and go, this guy's talking shit about you in a way that he's getting 100,000 views. And those people are willing to put their money where their mouth is and sign a petition, or they're going to do on their channel the same thing and point a light at the darkness in California, New York, New Jersey, Newport Beach, whatever, So it's up to you and I to find your target of opportunity and aim small. And then get all your friends together like a team of shooting buddy marksmen and tell them, aim small. Here's our target this week or this month. Because the minute you hit that target and you start moving the needle and things start happening, and if you're paying attention, then you can reacquire different targets and broaden your field of operations to where if something starts happening, then you go and blunt it over there and flank it over here and focus it that way. And then you start making a change. Do you have to become a little more politically active? Yeah. Do you have to learn a little bit more instead of reading talking points on Facebook and cute-ass fucking memes? Yeah, you do. Because now you're in the swamp. You're in the pond. It's not as deep as the one Trump was trying to drain in Washington, but you're in that. So you need to be a little bit more on your A game. You need to bring your A game. You're not just out plunking at the river now, shooting at beer bottles and cans. I'm sure that's politically correct, but whatever. You're actually on the shooting range, and there's rules now. And you have to bring your A game and shoot better. And then people go, you're a pretty good shot. I'd like to train with you or train you or help you. That's when the lawyer steps up and goes, I like what you guys are doing. I see what you're doing. I'm with you. Let's do it. So I'm at the sand and gravel place. So I'm going to continue this when I get back. Maybe I'll take a short break, throw a commercial out there.
Hey, you caught me bugging out of the area because of a critical incident. Luckily, I know what to do and I know where I'm going. Thanks to the Contra radio network. I mean, I listen to these guys. They give me crucial information on what to do when a critical crisis happens. So, what about you? Do you guys listen to the Contra radio network?
Let's talk about tea. Not just any tea, getthetea.com. They have all kinds of cool stuff. They have cleansing teas, they have stuff for eye health, stuff from the sea, immune support, stamina and energy, food and protein, and just all kinds of cool stuff. Log on to the website at www.getthetea.com. Log on now.
All right, 2.3 tons later. That was kind of tricky because I think he was a little bit newer than some of the guys that loaded me before, and they knew just how much a bucket would hold, and they had that big-ass front loader. So they're like almost full as 2 tons, and they'd hit right on the money. This guy, he might have known that, but he couldn't get a good scoop, which I understand that because that's kind of a pain in the ass. I'm not a tractor driver, very good at it anyway. So he had to come back, get some more, and then I couldn't judge. So I'm looking at it thinking, well, that kind of looks like the last fucking 2 times. I was right at 2.3, so I was happy. The trailer can carry 3 tons, but I don't have my electric brakes hooked up because I'm having some issues with that. So 2 is the sweet spot. All right, so go back home now. So we were talking about our simple plan, my simple plan. And I'm sure it could be expanded and work right. But I don't see any reason logically or strategically to go any larger. You know, if we have a big picture as maybe the perpetrators of this plan, then we could, you know, get our community working right and get all the bugs fixed and then maybe move to the next small town in the county because people are going to see what's going on. You're going to go, hey, what are you doing there in your town? It's like, well, we're doing this and that. It's like, well, I noticed you got a lot of things changed. That's kind of cool. Wish our town would do that. It's like, well, here's how you do it. And I think, you know, I might be the only guy listening to this podcast, unless somebody shares it, in the entire state of Arizona. But if I get my friends that are all very politically active too and think this shit show needs to come to an end, they live in other towns. So we also can work together and keep things, you know, moving. So I work on my town. They help me because they know people that maybe bring a little bit more enlightenment to what I'm trying to do. You know, maybe whatever my pet peeve is with the city. And then so they can work on their town. Then you get 5 or 6 towns finally because you know people, and they see what's going on, and they're observant because, you know, we watch the news for a reason. We watch the news to see what's happening. You know, it's not like we want to have a life force sucked out of us by watching the news and this, you know, bullshit that just sucks our mojo dry and leaves us, you know, wanting anything but what we're being fed, which is horse shit. So people will see. You will meet people just in your small town like mine of I don't know, you know, 5,000-6,000 people. You start doing something and then you're talking to people, and if you get the guy maybe from the radio station, you know, he knows people and they're like, oh, that's really great. I'm going to put you in touch with, you know, this other guy. Or my friend wants to talk to you. He lives in a town that's just so oppressive. What can he do? And as long as you're always aiming small and saying, well, you need to overthrow the city. You need to get all new mayors and all new city council in there. And you got to rewrite the rules, by golly. Well, that's not aiming small. That's, once again, very broad, like a shotgun kind of thing. So you do the same thing. Maybe you put together your playbook as you start doing it. You don't write a playbook and then start following it. You just go, here's what we're going to do. Let's try this. Write it down. Keep notes. Keep putting it together to where the next time you're talking to somebody is like, what can we do? You go, well, here I've written this down. I got a PDF kind of that what we were doing in the beginning and what worked and what didn't work, and so we've gotten to where we are now, and so if that can get you to there, then that's progress, and I think each battle would be similar, strategically fought. I might be going after planning and zoning or the city writing code that's friendly to people because, like I said, I have no problem with a lot of the stuff the city does, as far as, their services, but it's the ones they do that are outside their scope. They never had the authority to do it, but they did it anyway. Or they thought they did, and then they abused it, like planning and zoning. Or they wrote laws that didn't have workshops involved, and the community wasn't brought into the vote, and therefore it was illegal, at least in my town. So you're in town B, and you're like, I want to do this, and you're like, well, awesome, go fucking do it. It's like, I think what they're doing with this taxes is ridiculous. Our county is $60-some billion in debt to this failed retirement program, which is actually true happening in my county. But the city's going to be, the bigger city's going to end up bearing the brunt of most of this because we have more commerce, more tax dollars, more high-end properties. And I don't want to see this happen. My mother can barely afford her property taxes because, see, in some counties they don't give you a break, or they don't fix the rate of property tax once you get older. Some just waive it completely, but some do not. And so that's why in California a lot of people sell their houses and and move because they've reached an age. They bought an old house in the 50s or 60s that they scraped together enough money to buy it in a small area, and they loved it and they were happy and they were part of that community. And then as things change, which they do in life, now all of a sudden their $40,000 home that they bought, or even less maybe, when they first got married and got out of the army or whatever, that now is $2.4 million, because just everything grew up around them. And they might have fixed their house up and it was nice, it's still small, but it's the property that's worth $2.6 million, not the fucking house sitting on top of it. You got a pretty big lot, they'll scrape that house off there and build a 4-apartment, little thing with parking underground. They'll excavate the dirt, and they'll stack it on top of it, and it'd be like huge. So they're getting 4 rents out of one property now. So they can't afford the property tax now because they're retired. They couldn't even afford it back in the day, but they worked, and so that's what you want to do. I want to stop this. I don't want to pay the brunt of this mistake the county made just because I happen to live in a nicer area that has higher property values, therefore more property tax even on the same lot. Because like I have, my house sits on an acre where I live. Well, it is still pretty cheap because the town itself, the property values are pretty low. And they'll tell you in the county that, we treat all property value the same. It's like, yeah, whatever. You live in an affluent area, a 3,200 square foot house like mine, now that I've added on to it, or 3,000 about, is valued a lot more just in resale and the comps than mine in a smaller town that no one cares about ever wanting to live there. So it's just as nice. It's built just as nice, as all the same amenities. It's just not a stucco palace. It's, stick built with hardy panel siding, and it's brand new paint, brand new doors, brand new triple pane windows, brand new everything, 2 heating and air and cooling units and everything, just like a big house. But I could maybe get 120,000 for it because of the area I'm in, and got landscaping and sprinkler systems and everything. It's like just automated to the max, just like a house here in the bigger city that's valued at 300,000-400,000. Well, you tell me the property tax is the same on that? Yeah, they might try to tell you that, but I doubt it. I think it's more, and they're not going to put that kind of house on an acre. They're going to divide that acre up into maybe third acres. So there's 3 of them. So even if they're charging the same on that acre of land, they're getting 3 times more money or 2 times more, or whatever the fuck it ends up being. So, that might be your small target. And so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to find out the key players in it. It's going to always fall back to the city council. And so you're going to need to get them on your side. So if your friend comes to you and says, I live in bumfuck nowhere, but we're having problems because the mayor's an asshat, like that small town I was telling you about, we need to do something about it. You always start with the mayor and the city council and the people in charge. And then you attack the problem once you get your key players in place, or at least in line. Might not get them in place, but if you grab the mayor by the short hairs and you go, hey, this is what we're going to do, jerkweed. And if you don't like it, I already got more signatures on a petition to recall you than you got in the whole election. So you're out of here. But we don't mind you. We don't want to go through all that because it's a pain in the ass. Why don't you just sign off on this and quit being a douchebag and start being our neighbor, motherfucker? So you're always going to fight the battle the same way. You're still going to always start at the key players. And in every town, in every city, and all across America, there's a mayor and council, or aldermans, or whatever they call them. There's the guy that's elected that hires the chief of police, and so he hires the chief of police. See, the chief of police is not elected. The sheriff is elected, or the marshal, or whatever you call them in your parish or whatever. But they're elected. They're the highest law enforcement officer in the county. Beyond there, the chief of police writes tickets out of the sheriff's checkbook, basically. He's got the constitutional authority granted by the people, and he allows or shares that authority with the police. So if you don't like what's going on, like what happened in Baltimore and the whole hands up, don't shoot when the Black Lives Matter started, they could have just went to the sheriff and said, hey, we want these police officers at least investigated by you. We trust you. We elected you. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to make money, so they created Black Lives Matter, and they obviously raised a lot of money, so whatever, more power to them. But, if they wanted to really fix the problem, they would have went to the sheriff and fixed that problem right away. So everything runs pretty much the same everywhere you are in America. The mayor of New York, you got a governor of, New York, you got, representatives and senators. It's the same flock of buzzards and vultures that you have in smaller states, the flyover states, as they call us, because they like to marginalize us and make us not feel so cool. So the targets, even though you're aiming small, are going to always be 1 or 2 or 3 people that you need to start focusing on, and then figuring them out. Do your opposition research. Start figuring it out. And don't do like they do in Mexico. Mexican people have been fucked over by these families for years because they feel good about this guy. And they're like, yeah, I like him because he's got nice hair and he says shit. And then They elect him, and then he turns around and steals all their fucking money, or screws them, or steals their land. And that's because they vote based on emotion and not logic and not research. And I don't mean to bash on cultures that, operate from matters of the heart more than they do matters of the brain. But in this situation, you have to go to logic, reason, and common sense. They will play on your emotions because they know most people are very emotion based. You make them cry and they're going to vote for you. You make them feel good about their puppy and they're going to vote for you, whatever it is. But when you go, what are you going to do? If they bring in logic and common sense and they start telling you, well, we're going to have to raise taxes to pay for all these poor people that we've let into the town, then you're going to sit there and go, wait a minute, who's this we? I didn't want them here in the first place. You got everybody all emotionally wound up, and now we have these people. I'm not going to pay anymore. We've already brought them here and given them free housing and a bus, and everything else is subsidized. No more. Well, that all falls under Section 8 housing. It's like, oh, so it's a federal program. Yes, it is. So, a lot of the money comes from the federal government. It's like a lot or all of it. Because, see, you're talking about raising my taxes, so a lot isn't enough. So you're still raising my taxes. See, that would be thinking instead of feeling. And you have to vote on people for what they're saying. And I've noticed in the last elections, it's all about emotion. Well, he's a good guy. He likes his dog. He's a bad guy. He put his dog on the roof of the truck in a dog carrier. Oh, bad man. It's like, nobody talked about it. And Mitt Romney is a fucking douchebag. Don't get me wrong. And what he did in Michigan or Massachusetts with his health care was probably totally wrong. But he did it the right way. It's like, in my state, we're doing this. It's not federal. But then when he ran for president, he wanted to make it federal because it works so well in his state. Well, no, that's how a country was set up. 50 states were 50 laboratories to try out 50 different bad ideas. And then we could all pick up on a federal level, maybe, the one that worked. But we didn't have to make it federal. Like if Massachusetts' next neighboring state would have went, that's working really great. We're going to try it. And then for some reason, because of the economics of that state, because every state has different economic drivers, it doesn't work, then you don't fucking do it. So, here's Mitt Romney, he's running for president. And what did everybody get all mad at Mitt Romney about? Well, that he had his dog on the top of the van in a car carrier. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Oh, he had a bunch of notebooks with women's names in them, which, they were talking about women and hiring women and giving women better jobs in government. And he said, yeah, I've been hiring women for years, and I have notebooks full of women's names that, basically are good people that will do what needs done. And they turned that into some kind of chauvinist thing. So, it all became issues of the heart, and I don't like his hair. John McCain's weird, which he is, well, he's dead now, so I guess not really weird anymore. So we as Americans a lot of times get sold this voting, kind of idea of, emotion based, and that's not the way it's supposed to be, because it's politics. You can run your house the way you want, and you can have discussions with people in your community about, emotional things like, child safety, it's abduction, some kid got hurt or something. And those are emotional things that need to be dealt with, but they need to be dealt with on a common sense level. You don't just get all emotional about some child abduction and find the first person you think did it and lynch them, like they used to do in the Wild West days. Hang them, get a rope, like in the movie Tombstone. There'll be no hanging tonight, with Curly Bill and all that, which, he was an asshat and they probably should have hung him. But either way, he got his He got his in the end. That's how America works. See, we have a justice system and laws, and so, we draw the line at being emotional, when it comes to exacting justice sometimes, and yet when we vote for people that create the laws that we have to live by, we're totally okay with just, he's got good hair. Oh, he makes me feel good. Oh, did you hear he bought that little kid a puppy? And that's it. Fucker wins. Boom. Mayor of fucking California because he bought a puppy. If he didn't know it was that cheap to win, he wouldn't have spent millions on advertising. But then if he didn't, nobody would have known that he bought a puppy. So you have to, we can't fall into that trap. We have to remain vigilant and focused and use our sense and our ability to reason to do what we got to do. And so, once again, we're going to aim small, and we're going to use logic and common sense and reason to pick the people, or to get them on our side, or to attack them to get them out of the way. So there's a Taoism that says, like division is really not about math. It's divide and conquer kind of thing. And I have a tattoo on this arm for the symbol of division. And what it means is in life there's problems. And there's three kinds of problems. And so the first problem is kind of like what they call a puzzle. And it challenges you. And you want to figure it out. And you bat it around and you go, well, and the whole purpose of resolving this problem is because it's almost entertaining. It's a puzzle. You choose to do it. And you might meet politicians that are that way. They puzzle you. They're not really like adversarial. And you can work with them, see, and you'd have to determine what kind of problem this individual is. And then there's the object. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Then there's the object type of problem. It's something that's in your way. It's right there in front of you. You're trying to go from point A to point B, and it's in your way. It's a zoning violation. It's the chief of police. It's something that's stopping you from having your rights, whether it's a front yard garden or raising chickens. For right now, it's just an object in your way. How do I get around it or over it or through it to get to the other side and to have my garden, in my yard? So you have to look at it that way. It's not a puzzle. You have to figure it out. You're going from point A to point B. This is the way you were raised. You're from the Depression. You're a grandma, and your grandma can't have a garden, but that's her mindset. And she doesn't eat that much. It's not like she's going to start a corporate farm in your fucking neighborhood. And so it's not a puzzle. It's important to her to have her food, to eat, to not die because she's on a fixed income. So it's in your way, and you have to get around it, through it, over it. And that's where you get into negotiating. And they say politics is negotiation and give and take and all that. It's like, well, yeah, to a point. But then you run into the adversary. And see, like I kind of created the adversary type of problem by telling the guy from planning and zoning that I was going to have him trespassed off my property. And he goes, well, I can do that. And I didn't argue with him. I didn't engage him. I just kind of laughed. And then I said, well, regardless, I go, this stop work order has no code on it, no state statute on it. It's just words. You're telling me to stop working on my house. Just like if I went to your house and said, stop podcasting. It's like, fuck you. Who are you? That's what he was doing. See, and he couldn't back it up with anything. So then he wrote the ordinance down. He's like, according to city ordinance. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, see. Now I can look that up. It's not just you saying stop because it's noisy and you don't like it or whatever. You're a control freak and what the fuck am I doing adding on to my house? He can't afford it or whatever. So then he put the ordinance on there. And I said, well, that's great. That's a city ordinance. I'll look into it. I said, but I can quote 3, trespassing statutes that are codified into law in the state constitution. I'd appreciate it if you stayed off my property. So I guess, according to some people I've talked to, I pissed him off. So he's become an adversary. And an adversarial problem will not go away. Whether you win or get around them or figure it out like a puzzle or go through them like an object, it will always be there. It's like the fucking movie where you shoot the guy and he just keeps coming back at you because you thought he was dead. You thought he drowned. Well, with an adversarial problem, you don't think that you've solved it. You must destroy them one way or another. And so he's become my adversarial problem. Now, I might be able to get him to become more of an object because he doesn't run the fucking city, but he won't let go of this thing. So I need to play my cards to where I can not so much win, just get him to waive enforcement so I can go on with my life. That would make him more of an object. But if he continues to throw shit in my way and come at me, even though I suggested the city to waive enforcement on my parcel, so nobody wins, nobody loses. If he keeps continuing on and no, I won't accept that. I'm the guy. I'm planning and zoning director or whatever the fuck he is, his title. Enforcement, Nazi for some fake city government branch or department that has no fucking authority other than they think they do, and the city's stupid enough to go, well, I think that's right. We need control freaks. So he can either stay an object problem that I have to get around or through, but if he keeps throwing shit in my way, then technically he's become an adversary. Well, then what I need to do is say I go to the municipal court and they're stupid and they're like, you lose because we don't like you, Mark. Okay, then I appeal it. Eventually, then I'll appeal it to where I will win because it's state constitution is pretty fucking clear. I'm right, they're wrong. Well, now how do I destroy him since he's moved himself into an adversarial thing? And just because I win that doesn't mean he might not come back. So now I have to sue him, see, because he said I can't build on my property. And he said I would go to jail and there would be fines and penalties. So that is threats and intimidation because we proved in court that he had no authority to do that. So therefore, if a cop says he's going to do something to you, like, I'm going to throw the book at you, you're never going to see your wife or children for 40 fucking years, and he doesn't have the authority to do that because he doesn't, then you can sue him for threats and intimidation. And like I told, somebody on the city council, I go, the fact that I'm going to sue him for threats and intimidation is just one of those things, because I'm going to find a way to sue him personally to where the city's lawyer isn't paying, all the legal fees. He is, him personally. And then I'm not going to just sue him for threats and intimidation. I'm going to come up with all kinds of stuff to where when he was on my property, he offended me. He threatened me. Not just with the legal system. He threatened to punch me out. He was so mad that he said, I'm going to get you. I'm going to kick your ass or whatever. See, I don't have to prove it. It's the allegation. And a lot of people might be listening now because I know a lot of my listeners are religious by nature. They're going to sit there and go, Mark, that's a bridge too far. That's almost extortion. Well, he's the one that put himself in the adversary class. And for me to destroy him and ruin him and to get him completely out of the picture, I might have to fight dirty. And I've noticed in America's history that, well, we killed English people and we went to war with Spain and we killed Spanish people. We went to war with Mexico and we killed Mexican people. We went to war with Germany and we killed Germans. We went to war with Japan and we killed Japanese people. Went to war in the Middle East, and we've killed Middle Eastern people, Afghanistanis, Taliban, whatever the fuck their names are. So that's okay. See, for freedom and liberty, now you got to keep this in perspective. Why did we kill Japanese? Oh, because they attacked us? Oh, okay. We could have brushed that off and went, well, yeah, that was stupid to leave all our planes in one fucking pile and all our boats. God, needed to keep all our eggs. Don't keep your eggs in one basket. We did that. And then we could have held them off, and no big deal. We didn't have to drop fucking 2 atomic bombs on them. Why did we go to war with Germany? To stop the progression of communism and socialism. And yeah, because whatever feel-good things we could think of, like, oh, look at the Jews are being fucked up. But most Americans didn't even know about that until, like, they were freed from Auschwitz and stuff. The German people didn't even know it. So we go to war to stop communism, to keep America free. So we go to war for democracy. Actually, it's for republic. And it should be to defend our sovereignty as a free people. Now we've kind of bastardized it to where we got to go out like franchising and get everyone to become a democracy because we're McDonald's and we want everyone to be McDonald's. So we went to these wars and we killed all those people in the name of freedom and liberty. So I'm not going to shoot this motherfucker, but I am willing to stretch the truth. And if that's called extortion, then so be it. And I doubt I'll have to do that because he's done enough things. But what if you run into a real adversarial person in your big town, and he's literally going to send the city hitman after you because they black bag people all the time. Like California does things that are heinous to a lot of the people that are just trying to exercise their rights and their freedom. They've arrested them. They've ruined their lives. They've besmirched them. They do that at a federal level constantly. And don't think your little city of 50 to 100,000 people are above that. If you looked around, you've probably seen that they used Billy or Mary as an example. Well, we're going to crush them. And they throw the book at them. And then, in court, none of the evidence gets heard because, well, the DA didn't think it was necessary. We've heard about that. Haven't we? Yeah, of course we have. So, this happens all the time. And it happens up there in that level. They can do that, I guess, right? It's right to falsify evidence to put someone in prison because he made an enemy maybe of the district attorney. He fucked over the chief of police. Why was that? They just thought he was bad. There was no evidence. He kept walking from all these court cases. So obviously if your system works, he was innocent. But people think he's bad. And usually they are, because our legal system's so corrupt nowadays. But does that give you the right to plant evidence? Gets him off the street. He's bad. Okay, so can I say that? I'm an American. All the authority these people are using and abusing come from me and you. So if it's okay that them to take that authority that we gave them, we can't use it either. I can't throw some false allegations out there to get this guy out of my way. And it doesn't mean that if I say something and it ruins his credibility in the community or in the county, and he resigns and walks away, it doesn't mean that I can't let him resign. I don't have to take it to fruition and sue him for whatever false deed I'm falsifying. Now, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. And these people, we elect them, they hire their friends become high in power. Most of the people that impeached Trump twice were not even elected people. They were clowns and jackoffs like, the guys that work for the FBI and the CIA. They were not elected. So we're out here as Americans doing what we think is the right thing. And then the people we elect hire dumbasses that lie to them and say, oh, I'm like a pillar of righteousness. And then they abuse the system. And I think abusing the system back at them to get their ass out of town is totally fine. I would never use false allegations and have someone arrested or have them go to prison when I know it was bullshit. But I will use it to discredit the holy fuck out of them because I know they're going to do it to me. So it's game plan. You can pick your own battles because I'm one guy. I'm going to work on my town. I will help you with your town if you email me at mark@prepperguy and go, hey, I'm having a battle. How do I aim small again? Here's where I live. Here's what I'm up against. And then we can bounce it all around and see if we can come up with something. But if you and your group decide to aim small and you go, I would never do like Mark's saying and use false allegations. And this is just that one guy. This is the one adversarial problem that I'm having a hard time dealing with. All the other problems have been puzzles and objects, which I've gone around and dodged bullets for the 20 years I've lived there. I've added on to my house before and didn't give them a fucking dime either. $200 was a token, to get them off my back, but I wasn't in the mood at the time to fight. But it's still, I found a way over that object that was in my way. I gave him some money, which is like a tenth of what I probably should have paid for that permit. But I wore the guy down. So that was going around the problem or through it or something over it. This has been the first. I've never in my life, I've only run into a few adversaries that are just eternally after me. And I still have always chosen to take the high road. But when it becomes political, finding that high road's a lot harder. Because you only have a certain time limit because they can do so much damage to your neighbors in that time frame. Or if it's just me, I'm willing to put up with it. So you can pick your own rules of engagement. Yeah, we'll call it rules of engagement. And you can fight your battles however you see fit. So that's all I can think of. I mean, really, it is a simple plan, and there's no reason for me to go on and on, 5 or 6 podcasts on explaining each nuance. If you want to look up the Taoism symbol for division and read what it means, then do your homework. And then so how do I apply that to these butt munchers that are in my city, running it into the ground? Do it. But we have to just remember to aim small. Stop aiming for, we want our country back. We got it. They haven't locked us all up in cages yet, so we got our country. It's a term that's like, it's stupid. I want my country back. I want my freedom of press back. I want my freedom of speech back. I want my gun rights back. Well, you still got them. And even if the federal government says you can't own a gun ever again, doesn't mean your state has to follow along. And even if your state is one of those fucked up liberal states like Illinois and D.C. is not a state but it's a district, and California, and there's so many states have fucked up heinous gun laws. Doesn't mean your sheriff has to enforce them. And if they come into your county to enforce that gun law, your sheriff, if he's a man or a woman about it and a constitutional sheriff from part of the CSPOA or .org and has learned some shit, he can let you carry a gun. They'll go, that's federal law. It's like, well, we don't care. Well, it's state law. We don't care. Our county said, well, our sheriff said, I'm not going to enforce these group gatherings and mask wearing. It's not going to do it. Everybody's like, you're going to kill everyone. Most of the people in the state that aren't fucking 1% morons are like, oh, thank God. The people in our county were thankful. Sure, were there some big mouths out there going, yeah, you can't do that. Wear a mask for my safety. It's like your safety is the least of my fucking problems. So we need to figure it out. I will be, talking about as I go along how it's working. I've been talking about my planning and zoning fight. Next month I got another continuance, and we'll see what happens. And I'm just letting them string it along because the ball's in their court. They haven't presented any evidence to me through discovery and said, okay, here's your court date. So it's really up to them to drop it or pursue it. So there's no reason for me to get all mad and kick a sleeping dog. Fuck it. Let him sleep. Maybe while he's sleeping, he'll die and go away. I don't care. But I'll keep you on top of it. Our city's thinking about rewriting the code. So I'll let you know how that's going. I'll try to take notes and be like all official and shit. And you need to do the same. If you have a podcast, talk about it. It's so easy to do a podcast. I'm talking to my phone right now. I got a little bungee cord, like one of those 6-inch bungee cords with a hook on each side. Wrap it around my mirror and around my phone and hook it on there. And look how stable it is. It's great. Better than them shitty mounts that you buy that rattle all over and fucking fall off the window. It's my mirror. It hasn't fell off in years. So do that. Start a podcast. Start a local podcast. Start a local blog. Start talking about local people. Start using your brain and not being those people that don't understand how it works, because nothing would be worse than for you to start a movement and to take aim at people that are doing the right thing. See, then you'd be just like another libtard fucking shit up. And I talk to smart people all the time. They're like, oh, Social Security is not an entitlement. It is an entitlement. It's like, just go to socialsecurity.org, .gov, whatever the fuck it is. Tells you it's an entitlement. Your Social Security taxes were supposed to go into a trust fund, but they don't. It's a bookkeeping trust fund. It's like petty cash. Where did that petty cash come? It's on a ledger in a bookkeeping system. And there might even be a box with $10, $15 in it for petty cash. But they can take that money out and buy copier paper if they need it, which is not something for petty cash. Same thing. So don't be those people that just hear the talking points from the left or the loons, in politics and go, oh, they can do that. The whole thing with this popular vote thing. We don't vote for presidents. Popular vote is bullshit. That's why they're having so much trouble figuring it out, because it never existed. It's smoke and mirrors. Learn stuff before you get involved. Strip it down to the purest form of the Constitution and go, what would the founding fathers do when the colonies were just set up and were having problems? What did they do? How did they treat it? Read the history of the colonies, because each state is a colony. It's actually a country. How did they govern themselves back then when we didn't have planning and zoning, ATF, gun control, all this shit? That's how it should be running. And all safety nets be damned. Read that and try to follow that for your local area. And always remember, if they need an answer out of you right away, then the answer is no. We want to tax the rich in our community. That guy Bobby's so fucking rich, to fund our swimming pool for the poor kids. What's your answer? No. Why would you do that? That's not America. And most people, that's why I'm presenting my plan, have the common sense to go, this is not the way it was supposed to be. What I see here in my community is not what it's supposed to be. How do I know that? Because I studied history. I just know that when you're taking tax dollars and giving it to people that didn't earn it, that's a reallocation of wealth. That's improper. Taxes are illegal. Income tax is totally illegal. It was never ratified. So if you want to fight that battle, but you're not going to win. Property taxes are oppressive. Fight that battle. Things that affect you, not because, I don't like him. He's a fucking big mouth. Well, it's not a battle. It's stupid. Deal with it. So get involved. That's my simple plan. It is that simple. Aim small. Find your target of opportunity. Get your friends together. Determine your rules of engagement. The battle plan, A, B, and C. And initiate it. I hope this helped. Because I'm going to start talking about other shit again. I read a really good post in Casual Prepper on Facebook. I like them guys. They ask good questions and get good responses. And it was about, why do all these groups talk about politics in the prepping community? And I have a theory on that, but if you're not paying attention and listening to politics, then you're not prepping. I'm sorry.
We made too many compromises already, too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back.
I'm your huckleberry.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
That's just my game.